on book of views, and let's get started here. And why must you be stupid? Go live.
Okay, this is a message for all the U.S. homeowners. If you owe less than
That's this me
$356,362 on your home and you haven't
because
missed a mortgage
monetization.
payment in 6 months, you should.
All right. Hey guys, what's going on? MJ, we got Brent here today. We're getting set up. We got a GSpeed V3 we're going to make this real cool and real pretty. And of course, nothing is ever going to go nice and perfect. All right, here it is. There it is. All right.
What's up, guys?
So, what Brent's going to do is walk us through. He's the link doctor. We're making it official. We're just calling you the link doctor.
Link doctor.
So we figured we've got a lot of questions, hearing from our fans and custom builders, the biggest issues, the smallest things. So Brent's going to go through how to do build, and we even have a package of unused links over here.
Yeah.
So that way you guys can see what they look like, not like straight out of the gold packaging. To all right, everything, the rod ends are put on, and then how do you set it up? Now today our chassis that we're going to work with is the GSpeed V3, and this particular setup will also work with the GSpeed C1 or V1C1.
Yeah, it'll apply to that as well.
Now, after doing some discussions and doing some research, these chassis in particular are special. And other link configurations will not work with it. So if you happen to have ordered something from Correct Carbon Works or something for a Northwest Scalar Designs or even a stock,
your link placement might be a little different.
It's gonna be different. All right, so we're gonna focus here, and guys, we are gonna get going. Couple of quick shout outs. I want to say thank you. The gentleman over, GSpeed Gabe, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and we're going to do our best to try and keep us going because we have live on Facebook and live on YouTube. So, Brent, I'm going to hand it over to you since you are the link doctor, and teach us, master.
All right, so basically all links are cut and machined right here in-house. So we're very hands-on with the product, and we have the ability to make any modifications or whatever. But basically, for the GSpeed links and all the link kits now, I'm going through and taking a Sharpie to note what's your rear lower, your rear upper, your front lower, and so forth. So this one's got an RL on it, so that's your rear lower. So starting with that, your links are marked. You're going to have a good idea where they go. You want to get your rod ends installed. I picked up one of these little shock plier tools. I think it was maybe $10, $12 on Amazon, and it's awesome. It's like having a little vise in your hand, and also it doesn't scratch up your links. So we're gonna use the 4mm slot and hold that link really well, and then we can go through and attach this rod in. We're just going to get it started by hand. Always kind of like to start things by hand a little bit. And I got the good old rod end tool here from Team Garage Hack. And then you can get your rod end installed. So, your pivot ball. Typically what I do is just put the ball down, put your rod end over top, and then it goes on like slow. So, pretty easy. So beforehand, I went ahead and got all the rod ends installed. And I'm going to go ahead and lay them out. You got your steering link with the two bends. This has the get low down mount, so it's got a shorter link for that for the steering. Your Panhard link, which will be marked Pan, P-A-N for Panhard. It's kind of a slight bend. That slight bend is going to be on this side of the axle. So not up here, but this way. Next, your longest links are the rear lowers. So we're going to grab them. And once you got all your rod ends on, you always want to make sure you take your 2 pairs. So you got your 2 rear uppers, your 2 front lowers, and make sure your rod ends on both link, everything's all square and the exact same. So that way when everything's bolted up, it's perfect. And we got, let's see, front lowers. So your front lowers are going to be the next longest. I'm going to set them here.
So we're getting a couple comments right off the bat. Kevin over on YouTube is highlighting how this kind of information is really helping people new to the hobby. And I want to address that real quick because that's the whole intent. Like, we want to make sure that there's a resource out there.
Sure, yeah. And it's just little things, and it's all in the details. I mean, just putting the links in 2 different spots is going to make it all wrong. And you know, if you don't know better, you just don't know. So having a resource like this available, you can always go back to. Hopefully, it's beneficial, you know, long term. I just matched up 2 more next in line. So these are the rear uppers, and then obviously I got the front upper. And for this GSpeed chassis with this Ford motor mount setup, and it also applies to any other chassis that has a Ford motor mount. For that front upper link, I actually kind of set up the rod ends a little bit different so that basically when this bolts up on the chassis side, the bend is kind of vertical in line with the rod end versus the other way, making it high clearance, if you will. So this really, what it does is it offsets it and kind of sneaks the link beside the motor mount, the motor plate.
That was the one thing that we had a bit of a moment trying to figure out is on this particular chassis, you see the IntheworksRC forward motor mount on this. So everything that we're doing here will work directly with a combination of the GSpeed as well as the Intheworks product line.
Yeah, yeah. Or the Team Garage Hack motor mount.
Yep.
If you rigged up some other kind of motor mount, it would probably apply there as well. There's only so much room to work with in here, so let's get started. Next, we're going to get the skid, and we're going to get the lower 4 links onto the skid. So one thing you want to think about is your transfer case. If you're running like a Toyzuki 2.5 case or a Creeper T from Team Garage Hack or anything else, you have this bolt pattern here, and you want to make sure that you have it on the right side now before you get it all put together. So I'm going to slip this in here and just double check that I'm right. And what I think is, because the big gear is basically on this side, so your rear drive shaft's going this way, and then your smaller gear is over here going that way. So I'm pretty sure this is right. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and set the chassis aside, and then I'm gonna take my links. I got the rear lowers, and then I got my front lowers, which again are the next longest in line, and again they are marked. And I've already got my grub screws started in the skid, so we'll go ahead and get the links onto the skid. I do, you can have the bend at the axle side or the skid plate side. It really doesn't matter. I think it's, you know, personal preference, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I have seen some other skids and some other chassis that have a really hard angle, more so than what the GSpeed offers, and in which having the bend toward the skid might be beneficial to get over that extra rock. But on this one, I've seen both ways, and both ways have been very successful. So take your pick, whatever your personal preference is, and your it depends on your OCD level.
Sure.
Go for it.
One thing I do with the grub screws is I'll take one of the screws and I'll put it onto the driver and then set it on top of the skid, and I'll make sure that I'm evenly coming in contact with this side of the skid as much as I am as this side of the skid. And then when I do that, I take my Sharpie and actually mark my driver so that while I'm screwing this in, I know where to stop, and I have a good contact area on that grub screw inside the skid plate. If that's not all the way in this side, enough force from a fall or something will just pull that rod end and grub screw out of this Delrin skid plate. We've seen it happen. So, all right, rear links are going on. All right.
So does any out there in the social media world, does anybody have any questions as Brent goes ahead and makes sure that everything is nice and pretty and set up? Dan is saying good tips on the grubs. And glad to see someone else's OCD is on display.
You have no idea.
That's an understatement, Dan. I mess with his OCD in so many ways. It's kind of funny. So, just one more time, as Brent goes ahead and finishes up this, the longest links go on the rear.
Lower.
The rear lower.
Yeah.
The second longest links are the lower front.
Yeah, front lowers.
It is important that you guys know this, because it, like Brent said, it will be pretty interesting on how things sit. Dan over on Facebook World is highlighting the use of rod ends to fine tune links as needed.
Sure. So, like, if you needed to make an adjustment, you switch skids, you're going to like a Vader Monkey style or TGH style, it's going to require like a longer rear lower. You could always use a Traxxas 5525 Jado rod end, and then if that's too long for you, you could take some side cutters and trim a little bit off of that rod end, and it's still going to be longer than one of these. So, but ideally, you just request some custom links by size, so then you don't have the extra plastic of that rod end as a weak point. But from here, next on the list, I want to go ahead and get the links installed to the axles with the shocks.
Okay. So as he's going, also, I think another point that Dan might be asking about is highlighting, how do you adjust a rod end if, it's just a little too short, or you didn't make it, you made it too long.
Okay.
So, for what I like to do personally is, he's got you have that tool over there, right here. Okay, I'm going to come into camera view as Brent goes ahead and works. So what I like to do is I'll put this in here, and then maybe I'll do a half turn. I in a pinch, I'll use my 2.5 millimeter speed tip or screw. That way, I have a little bit of leverage. If not, I take we use the TGH speed wrench. But in for fine tuning, I do prefer to use a tool so that way I can get exactly. Let's say I only need to back it out just a little bit. I can get exactly that one half turn, or I need to make a quick quarter turn, like Brent was talking about, for that front upper link to clear the forward motor mount skid. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, and these shock pliers are really nice to have in those situations, so you don't have to take the link off, or at least just take it off one side of your truck.
Right.
So for this build, I'm just going to go ahead and put my lower links actually where the shocks should go. This is just personal preference. It gives me a little bit more horizontal link geometry, or link separation really, and that's going to just tighten up the rear end a little bit as far as your side-to-side play. And that I kind of picked up from my buddy Lawrence Shields, because he does this on like every one of his builds. So
Yeah, he does.
pretty cool.
Lawrence, love you, buddy.
All right, so I'm going to get the front one here. The front's just going to be like stock. The shocks are where they're supposed to go. And this doesn't make a difference as far as your overall wheelbase. It's not going to really change it. It's such a minute difference as far as a length difference.
For once, there's something that doesn't change your wheelbase. It's rare.
Yeah,
Enjoy it.
The portals are a little finicky. I mean, the smallest little adjustment, it kicks your caster, and next thing you know, you go from 12 to 12 and a half. All right, last link here for the lower. And for this build, in most portal builds, I just go with my 80 millimeter big bore shocks versus 90 millimeter, because with portals, you're kind of raising your center of gravity a little bit, and to bring things back down, the shock, running a shorter shock, it seems to work well for me. So we got this on, and next thing I want to do is go ahead and get the chassis bolted to the skid with the sliders. So let's see what we got for hardware.
The sliders always make it a little bit more interesting, just because everything has to be lined up so nice and neat. So you're going to notice there's a combination of power tools and hand tools being used. One thing that Brent has highlighted, at least in discussions with me, is he wants to prevent over tightening, and also the heat that comes with using a screw gun.
Yeah,
it just generates so much heat. So he wants to make sure that everything can be backed out, and it doesn't create a weak point for things to just come out.
Just pull the threads right out. Everything's just hot like butter, and it'll just pull everything right out with it too. So
Delrin and the 3D printed plastics are definitely interesting combinations.
Most of the stuff I'm literally stopping right when it's barely getting snug. So I'll come back through and hand tighten everything. I dropped my 2 millimeter, so.
Did you?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did I bring a?
It's way back there.
Yeah. It's not that. It's not that far.
Yours?
Yeah, I was saying, did I bring out a magnet? I thought I did, but apparently I did not.
So, on this chassis, your skid plate is going to be wider than, say, your low down mount, your 70 millimeter chassis braces, which we sell on the website. And so I got the one side of the skid plate on, and now I'm just going to go ahead and stretch this chassis out so that I can get the other side on. I'm going to hold it in place with my hand. Get a screw inside of my slider. Actually, let me get the screw inside.
Let's Josh Chafin come up and say what's up.
What's up?
All right. Thanks, Dan. Have a good one, brother.
Thanks for watching.
Robert, you on YouTube, have a good one. Be safe. Thanks for checking in from the UK, brother.
Got that in.
We got an Island RC Duke over here as well. Hope he's staying a little frosty because it's warm down there. It's warm out here.
Yeah, it's I think it's 116 right now on the other side of my garage door. So it's pretty toasty here in Virginia for some reason.
I don't know why, but tis what it is. Don't you love? I'm watching both the laptop and my phone. It's amazing how much more clear the live video feed on YouTube is compared to that laptop. It's night and day, literally.
Okay, we got the skid plate onto the chassis with the sliders, looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the front. I like always getting the front dialed in first. It's the most important because you got to think about your steering, your Panhard, and then the back's really just going to follow suit. But again, for this, and if you're picking up the GSpeed V3 chassis with IntheworksRC titanium links, everything's going to be marked for you, so it's pretty plug and play.
It is small, so if you, for those of you who are need glasses and have a hard time seeing small things, make sure you have a magnifying glass, because I mean he's literally writing it on a 1/8 piece of whether it's stainless steel, brass, or titanium, or Delrin, whatever it is. See, that's what he's using. So please, guys, make sure you have something that you can read the size. The good thing is, once you get things all together, everything will match up. You know, your lower links are the same for the rear, and then you have a matching pair with the front lower links and a matching pair for the rear lower links. So that's a good thing.
These needle nose pliers, they are a lifesaver.
Yes.
Definitely have a pair of needle nose pliers. A good pair. Front upper is secured to the chassis. And the front upper, again, the bend, when you put your links on, your rod ends on, I should say, you kind of want that bend to snake around if you're running this forward motor mount. If you got a center transmission like normal, you probably don't need to worry about it. But go ahead and get this onto the axle for the front upper link. We're getting there.
Now, for this particular build, we are using bone stock 10.3 axles. It is what it is.
Yeah,
that's what we happen to have here in stock.
Very popular.
And also, here's the second most beautiful thing. All of these tips and tricks are not AR-45 specific. They will also work with your AR-44s as well as the AR-45 straight builds.
Yeah, so with like an AR-44, the links are going to be different in length, but the mounting, as far as the longest being the rear lower, the next longest being the front lowers, next in line would be the rear uppers, and then the shortest out of the batch, as far as your suspension links, would be that front upper. So just keep that in mind. All right, I got the front link on, and now I want to go ahead and get my Panhard link bolted up. Your Panhard link has the bend, and the bend, like I showed you earlier, goes on this side of the axle. I'm using a little spacer, which a lot of people are doing for your GMP. Am I in the camera?
Yeah, you're in the camera now.
So yeah, it's about an 1/8 inch or 3 millimeter thick, and that's going to be just my little standoff here. And the only reason why I do that is because with the portals and running 80 millimeter shocks, if I want full up travel as far as flexing out on the right side, that little bit of spacer on this left side, that's what does it. That's what helps. So little tip there. I'm sure everybody has something laying around in there.
So he happens to be putting it in the first one for this particular build.
Yes.
And he is using the GSpeed. What is that? That's the multi. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's got the GSpeed multi-platform mount. Great product. Really like it. And also got the little support here for the axle. It's just really slick. It fits into the axle truss. There's a screw that secures it here. And then your link just bolts up in the front now. It won't go behind like it was factory on the 10.3, but I put mine in front now. So we'll do that.
I really like that.
And you're going to want to use a screw that's long enough to go through the plastic and then capture into those aluminum threads.
That's one of the few places that you definitely want to put some Loctite on. I know Brent's not a fan of Loctite. I'm a fan of Loctite only when it's going into something metal. So, like the servo mount, his GLD, I'd absolutely Loctite all for.
Yeah, definitely.
Even here on the multi, I know Brent and I have had discussions. We have two separate schools of thought, but that's okay because this is RC, and there's 10 different ways to be right.
Yes, that's for sure. Everybody does things different. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and get the long steering link on and the GLD steering link. Now, from the original GLD links, I've started to make them just a tad bit longer, and the reason being is because if you're running your link in front of the horn, you won't run into this issue. But if you're running it behind the horn, at full steer to the right, sometimes this can hit the servo. So with a slightly longer drag link, your servo horn is going to be slightly left, and you won't run into that issue. So
in pure aesthetics, I have definitely found that being in front, it works out really, really well. I'm sorry, being behind, it works out rather nicely. But I've also noticed a slight it hits the chassis when you make a full left-hand turn. So you'll get that chassis rise. So in this case, that's the big reason why, personally, I would be putting my drag link in going to the servo horn in front.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
it's easier to get to.
Oh, it's a lot easier to get to. It's not for aesthetics. Like if I wanted to be aesthetically pleasing and put it up on a shelf and be shiny, I would put it behind. But in this situation, because I want that performance, I want that throw, and I also want it to be able to be accessible. And in a situation like in a competition where you have a time limit, I want to make sure that it's in the front.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to really get in the way of the rocks that much. I mean, it's how I run mine, so it's worked well. And it's easy to do a quick bolt check. It's right there. You can get to it. All right, wrapping
And
up the
Loctite
front.
that one.
Loctite it all.
Loctite.
Squirt Loctite all over it.
Just take the truck and just dip it in a vat of Loctite. There you go. There you go. That might be genetic.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get my shocks on the front. Typically, I use a little bit of a spacer between my shocks and the chassis, so it doesn't hit the the chassis.
The chassis. So for the spacer in this particular situation,
Just a rod
we're
end.
using an extra rod end that we had laying around.
Just a ball.
Well, so when we planned this build, we actually went by and like, what would someone who has been in RC but like just kind of has parts laying around might have available? Well, this is something you guys might have available. Typically. I mean, either that, but it's also something a hobby store would have in stock if you needed to make a quick run.
A lot of your servos, they come with like the extra brass bushings and rubber thing. I mean, you could use anything really as that little standoff, but that's what I do. So the front end's together. It's looking good. Got full travel to the right. Full travel to the left. Steering. So looking good there. Let's finish up the rear.
And just to highlight how many of these RCs Brent has built with like 10 hours left before a competition. Yeah, he seems to have that down pretty well.
I'm going to go ahead and put the links into the truss first, so then I know which hole they'll fall into on the chassis side. And for the rear, I like the bend to be towards the skid, opposite of how the lower link is. So when they're flexing out, no matter where you have it, they won't bind up. So let me go ahead and do that. Get this bolt out.
It should be loose. We tried to prep as much as we could to make the video as painless as possible.
I could fumble around for hours.
We did fumble around for hours preparing this.
You're not supposed to know that.
You know what? It's prep. It's video prep. Anybody in the world, they'd understand.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I'm going to tighten this rear upper bolt.
You can thank Mrs. Recker for the permission to purchase a brand new speed tip because I've lost mine and I needed it.
It's tools, man. You gotta have your
Yeah.
tools. All right, so now I got the portal box sitting pretty level, and I can figure out where these links bolt up at. So it's pretty straightforward. You can put it in this top row or the next row down, either or. Yeah, it's definitely personal preference as far as anti-squat.
What would the difference be in seeing that in possible performance?
I mean, it's really a lot of tuning as far as how much your truck weighs, how low it sits, and, you know, for me, I actually run it in the lowest hole possible. That's what I do. So, you know, after tuning, seem to get more less unload. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this secured.
Well, before you put that on, why don't you go ahead and just follow your own directions and put it on the smallest. It's right there, the lowest hole possible.
I can.
Because
That's what you want.
Exactly. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, I had to slow down for a minute because I realized I was using the wrong bolt.
That happens, guys. And so the bolt situation is actually pretty important because we want to make sure that we have enough the correct bolts to be able to mount the rear shocks.
Right. Yeah, we're using just a slightly longer bolt just to accommodate for that standoff spacer.
And just in case, we also have clearly, as you guys can see, we have a plethora of screws ready to go. So far, out of this little kit off of Amazon, I can't even say that name right there. ITWRC. Yeah, sure, ITWRC. I've currently built my Northwest Scalar Designs V1 C1 V2. This is the version 2 of the Class 1, which you guys have seen courtesy Crawler Vault did put up a little spot, and yeah, I know you guys have seen it through the interwebs. Dan's not here to give me crap because he still doesn't believe that's my truck.
Yeah, it looks too good to be your truck.
For those on Tuba Views, well, yeah, you guys know me for some jankiness.
Yeah.
All right, so and that's it's just like, yeah.
We're very proud of how far he's come.
It doesn't happen that often.
All right, we're getting the rear shocks secured here. I'm using another one of my 70mm chassis braces. Got a good size M3 bolt here going through the shock.
And he's
using
also
a little rod end as a spacer.
Yep, that spacer part is actually probably one of the most important parts.
You
so
don't want your shocks rubbing the chassis while you're trying to flex. It's another, impediment, if you will, as far as your suspension performance, travel, etc. But yeah, so that's it. The only thing I don't have is a tape measure. But
in our previous measurements,
right before the video, yeah, she's 12.3 inches on the dot, and that's the finished product here with the GSpeed V3 chassis and IntheworksRC links. Pretty good build. I really like this chassis. The AR45s, it's what I'm running on my build. And it does well. Get a lot of clearance. Switching from the straight axles to portals, but
I'm looking forward to it.
I like it.
Especially, I mean, let's think about it. Even if I went to a one of that prototype 2 gear that you happen to have, I could still be okay because I'm going to run overdrive in the front and 0% overdrive in the rear.
Yeah.
And, this gives you lots of options, especially with the gearing that like TGH has or the transfer case, whether it's a creeper T or just standard zero overdrive creeper, or, whether it's something you've created because you send me to test stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's part of my job is to see if things break.
Yeah. Hey, does this work?
Yeah, right? No, I can't tell you. The G6, Recon G6, that was a completely experimental prototype truck.
Definitely. And it's
you guys can see Brent's
still
face.
living.
He's like, oh my god, yeah.
And that's where this Ford motor mount started. Was that truck, which was an Element Enduro base, and we wanted to just kind of do something different. So that original design got incorporated into this motor mount, just using a normal axial motor plate. No modification required. It just goes right on, uses the original style bearings, slipper shaft. These shafts are modified. So when you get these with my kit, they come modified with spacer, the hole's drilled out, and the shaft's been shortened. So
that way you guys over on YouTube land can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There. All right. So that
takes a minute for it to catch up.
it does take a second to catch up. What's going on, Mask? Appreciate it, Island. So yeah, anybody else have any questions before we wrap up for the day? Because I mean, looking forward, like Brent and I had this huge discussion. Don't be surprised if you see build like this going on with Corrupt Carbon Works, with Northwest Scalar Designs.
Actually, that's what we're going to do next. We have a Corrupt Carbon Works Reaper. That's going to be my new Class 3 build. So, yeah, that will probably be next on the bench, and we're going to do that with capper axles. So, should be pretty cool. I think we touched on everything I wanted to talk about.
I think we did. And we're going to do the same thing with Northwest Scalar Designs. And one more time, just because whenever you guys get the packaging, that fresh packaging, no, the longest links on are the lower rear. Okay, the second longest are the lower front. Okay, the third longest, if you're third shortest.
Longest,
yeah,
whatever.
longest. Yep, are going to be your rears, your upper rears, and then that single one. Again, we want it on a slight angle, so that way it can clear this motor plate, as you guys can see. That way, when there's full travel, nothing
interference.
There's no interference. Because remember, this doesn't rub, and I can get full travel out of it.
It's got a really good caster angle too.
Yep.
with this link setup.
So you guys can see the caster angle here. I think that's pretty close.
I think I see it better this way.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Way back. But, yeah.
Yep. So
Pretty good setup.
this is what we're all about, guys. We want to make sure you guys are building stuff right, and we also have another resource for if you guys have questions, you can come here, to the IntheworksRC fan page, which is live, and also we can use my channel. And do not be surprised to see this exact video pop up on IntheworksRC YouTube channel, which is in the process of being kicked into the next
Used.
used, kicked into the next gear. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna sign off. I really appreciate you guys coming on. Any other questions? Just go ahead and post up, and we'll try to address them as best as we can. All right, guys, appreciate it. Thank you. Stay frosty, my friends.
Thank you.
All right, and we gotta hit the end live button. Hey, you guys get a live shot of Brent
time.
working. Yeah, he's working.
Next time you get the cameras in line.
Yeah, right? It is what it is.
Thanks, guys.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
appreciate it.